All right, welcome to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I'm Jason Green, and we got a little something different today. But before we get into that, you got to make sure that you subscribe because we got to add up subscribers so we can keep having these really cool guests come back. Now, how many times have you been sitting around on a lazy Sunday afternoon and you're looking for a movie to binge watch? When I was a kid, they had this thing in New York called Channel 5, and they had the Kung Fu Drive-In, and you can watch a martial arts movie. Some were good, some were bad. Now there's so many martial arts movies out there. We need a little guidance and some recommendations on what to binge watch. Now today, we've got somebody that I would consider an expert in this field because, listen, he was the semifinalist in the All Valley Karate Tournament. You may have seen him in the movie The Karate Kid, and he's going to recommend 5 martial arts movies that you got to watch while stuck at home. And of course, we're going to talk about The Karate Kid 35 years later as well. Right after this. Right, it's an honor to welcome Darryl Vidal today. Here he is.
Hey, Jason, how are you?
Good, Darryl. Now, first things first, we got to say, I love that shirt.
Yes, it's not an authentic. It is a replica, but a friend of mine made it. It's got the All Valley logo on the back, and the referee that the referees all wore, and it has a very notable inscription on it. Can you see what it says?
Let's take a look. Well, it's a little hard to see, but that is signed by Pat Johnson.
That's correct.
Who is the referee in the Karate Kid movies, but was also the fight coordinator.
That's correct.
Now, Darryl, I knew we were going to get into some Karate Kid stuff, and I didn't want to be a complete nerd, although I did decorate behind me. But so
I didn't know it was always like that.
Well, I'm going to be single the rest of my life if I say that. But I've although it's cool to be into Karate Kid now, right?
I think it is, sure.
So I've got. Well, listen, Darryl, I got to get into it right away. You knew the power of this. Tell the truth. Did you not take your future wife to see The Karate Kid and not tell her that you were in the movie?
Yes. I don't know where you heard that obscure story from, but that is what happened.
That's a move, Darryl. Come on. How cool is that?
The timing was just right. I had known her, but this whole, summer of 1983 happened, and then I saw her again, and I asked her out. The timing was right, so brought her to the movie. And I don't know if you heard this, but my friends came along, and they were making kind of a whispering and talking around, and she couldn't pay attention. She was getting mad at them, and she didn't see my few seconds on film during the montage and the tournament. She didn't recognize that was me, so it was kind of like anticlimactic,
It's amazing. And I would say you're the true player, but in the long run, it worked. You got a wife out of it for 30 something years.
34 years, absolutely.
Well, we're going to get into some more Karate Kid, but while we're talking about Pat Johnson and the referee, I'm going to show you one of my cool pieces of Karate Kid memorabilia.
Right.
And I talked about this with William Christopher Ford from Karate Kid 3, and then he goes, "Oh, you got to show it." So for the first time, I have this. This is a personal bank check, and it's a bank check from Bob Barker, host of The Price is Right.
Okay.
And it is payable to Pat Johnson for karate lessons because Bob Barker was studying karate.
Wow.
And so on the back of the check, this is when you had checks.
Yeah, there you go.
It's endorsed by Pat Johnson. And what an odd.
That is very obscure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Pat Johnson is retired and not signing many things, so you got to get that shirt in a frame.
Yeah, I need to because I did the same thing. I have a Karate Kid shirt with with Ralph doing the crane kick silhouette, and I had been wearing it, and then I was going to a place where I was going to see everybody, so I had them all sign it, but it's all faded.
Oh yeah, so you got to put it away.
Yeah, I got to do that with this. I only put it on for interviews and stuff, so I don't wear it around town. But I need to get it framed with something.
For sure, it's definitely time to retire it. We got to get you. We'll get you a replica backup.
Now, if you don't mind, you mentioned William Christopher Ford, and I don't know if you know this, but he and I have been friends since before the Karate Kid.
Yeah, which is a strange coincidence. So William Christopher Ford plays Dennis in the Karate Kid Part 3. He's one of the henchmen for Mike Barnes. And it's funny that you guys, and again, you're both real martial artists. There weren't that many people in the movies. Most were actors first.
Correct.
You guys happen to be martial arts. So it's funny that all those years you've had that in common.
Yeah, well, we used to compete against each other. I was a couple of years, so we didn't directly. We were either competing next to each other or for a while against each other. But he was a great tournament competitor, as was I, which is the reason I got picked for the Karate Kid 1.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
Darryl, we were saying you've done a lot of interviews, and so a lot of these stories have been told. But there are people watching for the first time who want to know, how do you get picked to be in the Karate Kid?
Well, you have to be, you have to have some flash, right? Because they're not going to pick somebody up to be in the movie that's not an actor unless he's got some flash. And during that time, I've been watching a lot of Bruce Lee movies, so I didn't know how to get into Hollywood, but kind of the only thing that I could think of was competing in karate tournaments in the Los Angeles area. And sure enough, in a competition in LA, I compete, and I do this competition called kata, which you know what kata is from watching Karate Kid, but it's a competition as well. And the kata that I would perform actually had almost all the flying kicks that I use in the movie. So when I do that jump spin kick or the fan kicks, all those were in this kata, and that's what the director saw me do when they were scouting at this tournament that day. And so it was really like a Hollywood story. They scouted me and approached me and said, "How'd you like to be in a movie?" And I said, "Of course, I want to be in a movie."
Yeah, so we should point out, for those who might not know, the director of The Karate Kid, John Avildsen, also was the director of the movie Rocky, and was certainly an amazing director now in that genre, of course. And so you're just at this tournament putting on your demonstration, and you out of all the places to be, John Avildsen happens to be there and catch you and ask you if you'd like to be in a movie. Did you know what part you were going to play right away?
No.
How did it go next?
No, there was really nothing more than, well, okay, we liked what you saw, what they saw, and here's a phone number, call it on Monday, and then we'll see you in rehearsal. I mean, it really was that, because I had to go from there to the sparring competition, which I was actually getting ready for when they approached me. So, my mind's a blur, but all I had to do is wait till I can call on Monday. So on Monday I call, yes, come down to whatever Columbia Studios or wherever it was. And next thing I know, I'm in a sound studio with these actors and the director. And just, it was really a blur. I do have some vivid memories, but, I was completely blown away by the whole experience.
Yeah, and John Avildsen, before he passed, he has a YouTube channel that shows all of the rehearsal footage. He shot the entire movie on his video camera for rehearsal, and so there's a lot of great footage of you in there with the outtakes that people have never seen, and I recommend that they watch that if you're a fan.
Yeah, absolutely. You look it up, and I think it's part 12 of so many episodes of video footage, which he actually blocked out the whole movie. So it's pretty amazing, and I've actually seen people use footage from those rehearsals and the movie and splice them together and create some funny things.
Yeah. Now, so also let's get into the crane kick, which obviously you're credited as the inventor of the crane kick. Now, John Avildsen is definitely a big advocate of saying that. He wants everyone to know that. And I know for you, you as a martial artist, you're saying there was a kick. There's different styles have similar kicks, but you added to it. And so tell me a little bit about what the script called for, and then what you added to creating
that's the perfect question, because if you read the script, it really calls for a crane kick, with a guy standing on one leg. There's not a lot much more to that. And then in the discussion with the writer, Robert Mark Kamen and John Alvinson, they talked about, oh, you're going to be on one leg, standing atop a post with your arms out to the side. And I'm like, why would you ever do that in a fight? I mean, that wouldn't work. It comes in the face. So I think I objected one time, and they said, because that's what you're going to do. It's a crane technique. So, I started doing that, and I said the premise was to stand on one leg with one knee up, and then jump up, kick, and land on the same leg that you were standing on. And so, like you had mentioned, a lot of the systems have a kick like this. Ours is called a double jump kick, but you lift up one knee, and then you kick with your base leg, and then you land on the other knee. That's the only kind of way to actually do the jump. And everybody's seen this kick. After I did it, they said, okay, that's good. Now you have to do something with your hands. So I said, okay. So in the transition, I take this guard like this and kind of go up into the wing position, do the kick, and then land back. So that's what I created. The kick is a front kick, a jumping front kick.
Yeah, and the idea was that Daniel's leg is injured, and so the only way that he can do this kick is if he put all his weight on the other.
Right. The only way he could continue to fight would be to stand on one leg, because Bobby broke his leg or whatever, and then Johnny attacked it with his elbows. So
yeah, and so obviously, a martial artist is looking and going, yes, this is probably not something that would work, but in real life. But in a movie, this is cinematic history, and it's gone on forever. The crane kick is infamous, but now
the crane kick is more famous than anything I can think of. I always tell people that I'm the most famous person that no one knows, because everybody knows a crane kick, but they don't know who did it.
Well, and sometimes that could be nice though, because you can still go to the grocery store and not have to do the crane kick. Whereas Ralph, everywhere he goes, somebody wants him to do the crane kick.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Now, although I will say that me and Joe Esposito, we did the crane kick with you, and I couldn't resist. This was a dream come true. There it is on my phone.
Oh, yeah, great picture.
I think I'm the only one who took it serious, to be honest.
I did. I'm doing a good one.
You've kind of modified it into the walk like an Egyptian pose.
Yeah, sometimes I give it the little short arm thing.
You invented it. You could do whatever you want.
Thank you.
But so I want to say that the great Fumio Demura was Pat's stunt double for the majority of the movie. He did the famous scene where he fights the skeletons.
All the fighting.
Yeah, so he did the fighting. And so they come to you and they want you to do the crane kick because as Pat, you're going to stunt double for him. And so a couple questions is, one, how did they come to you about that? And then two, how come they didn't consider having Fumio do that as well?
The second question, I don't really know the answer to, except that they picked me for all my jumping, kicking, aptitude. So it was probably the first or second rehearsal meeting, because they had me come there every day or every weekday for 6 weeks to train with Cobra Kai guys. And so we were training, and probably early they said, okay, we're also going to have you do this crane kick thing. So I first started practicing it I would take a piece of chalk and draw a circle on the floor about the size of a plate, because they said that's how big it would be. And so I would practice it there. And once I had that covered, they actually brought in a piece of telephone pole and brought that in and practiced on that. And then eventually, and of course, this is happening over weeks and months, right? So we practice, and then we go away, and then the next thing we know, we're back. And it's October, and they say, okay, we're at the beach now. Meet at the beach, and I go to the beach, and there's the stumps. And I got to do the crane kick up there. So that was really how it came about.
Yeah, and so for people who might not realize, in that famous scene where they're on the beach and you see you see Mr. Miyagi doing the crane kick. This is actually Darryl.
Yes.
And Pat never got on there once, did he?
No. I mean, as the star, they didn't want him taking any risks.
Sure. And he wasn't a martial artist, and this is not an easy thing to do, even for somebody with experience.
Yes, correct. And,
so tell me a little bit about the wardrobe.
Yeah, the wardrobe, it was his clothes, which is like that like Gardner outfit, right? It's like a beige shirt, collared shirt, and khakis. Yeah. There you go.
There you go.
There you go. There's the Mr. Miyagi bobblehead, and I would tell you that it looks like that they used my face on that bobblehead. It looks markedly like me. But then, I don't have hair now, but the hair that back then I had a full head of hair, as you can remember from the tournament scenes. But they put a bald head wig and the little frosted hair and a mustache and goatee on me, and there was a bodysuit too. There was a big foam insert that I wore to make me look a little chunkier. Of course, I wouldn't have a problem with that now either. So.
Yeah, it's so they get you in the costume and they get you up on there. Now, Pat was there, right? Watching.
Yes. In fact, the last shot you see with him walking toward, you remember Ralph is in the surf, getting battered by the surf, and he looks up and Mr. Miyagi's gone, and then he looks down the beach and you see Miyagi walking. That's Pat walking. Then they cut to this scene where I'm doing this, and that's me. And they do it. There's like two separate shots. There's this shot, then a wider shot, or a closer shot, a wide shot, then a closer shot. We're doing it,
and it looks great. Today you have CGI. You could change the actor's face. You could do anything, but I don't think anyone ever realized that this wasn't Pat. And for years, you were kind of the secret.
It wasn't credited. Everybody thought it was Fumio. There's nothing that contradicted that until it was the 20-year director's release of The Karate Kid. And just to think about there's a 20-year release, it's like, wow, that movie had some longevity, But in that, they had a director's cut with commentary from John, Pat, and Ralph. And they're all talking, and then when it got to that scene, they said, "Oh, there's Darryl. Yeah, Darryl, he's really good. He did that scene, blah blah blah." And I was like, "See, vindicated. That was me."
Yeah, and since that screening, everything they did when Avildsen would speak, he would make sure to point out that you were that secret behind that scene, and you factor in Bill Conti's music and the technique of the scene and the emotion, and it's a very powerful scene in movies.
Yeah, I tell you, when you show that picture and I look at it, I can hear it's Bill Conti playing a pan flute, and you could, it's almost like you could hear the crashing of the waves and the pan flute.
When you look at that picture, the one we just showed, you hear that score. And Bill Conti and John Avildsen both worked on Rocky and The Karate Kid. So you talk about two amazing people in this scope of cinema,
Yeah, absolutely. And, I met with John a few years before he passed, but because of everything with the 20th anniversary, I was in contact with him. I wanted to meet with him. I wanted to sign a couple items and just say hello. And he actually filmed. You can actually find it on YouTube. He does a little clip where he's with me and he says, I'm here with Darryl Vidal, inventor of the crane kick, blah blah blah. And I say, "Hey, John, thank you." And I think he might have felt that he owed it to me because it didn't get credited in the thing. I don't know. He was always very gracious to me about saying that. When we did events moving forward. So,
yeah. Now, so we're looking at you right here in the semifinals fighting John.
A lot of hair. Yep.
Yeah. And what's so great is, and you have a piece of art behind you of this scene, and your piece of art is like it's the opposite of the Daniel versus Johnny scene. because your name is always on the tournament. So every scene in the movie, and the character is Vidal.
Yeah, my name. Yeah, what about that?
Yeah, and so your name is always, every picture that people may have of Johnny and Daniel in that tournament, your name is right on the board.
Right. I mean, not only was my name on the board, but I'm sitting in the stands right in front of Johnny's knee. So I'm there, and that picture that's behind me is a painting, and the artist who painted it. The artist that painted it painted me in there, so you can almost recognize it, and it's really amazing that this picture is so it's everywhere. That there's a barber shop in Canoga Park or Reseda area, the Valley, and it has this same mural painted on it in the whole side of a building. And it's the same thing. It's got my name, and I'm sitting there.
It's amazing, yeah. And you're also one of the people at the end of the movie who picks up Daniel, right?
Now, I have to ask you how you knew that, because I rarely ever said it, and it wasn't till it got on Netflix that you can kind of see it, because on television I could never, if I tried to point it out at people on television, the resolution was never sharp enough.
Right.
But after it came out on Netflix, people would say, "Hey, I saw you were one of the guys."
I studied. I prepared.
Yeah, somebody's really watching.
Yeah, which is, I think those little pieces of trivia are great for people. Look, we know that the Karate Kid is this huge universe now, and people of all ages are getting into it. For me, I told you a little bit myself. Yeah. I was a kid at the right age. I was sort of bullied. I took martial arts, and this movie sort of meant something to me. And to see Cobra Kai now and to see people getting interest in it, it's really a fun thing. And, I work with Joe Esposito, who sang You're the Best Around, and he's sort of your soundtrack. He
is. You know what? I met him for the first time that year that we did the Hollywood show. I was so blown away by meeting him, because I would never think that I would meet him. But I consider it my song because I'm in that montage. And so his voice, and so I got him to sing it, and you were there. It's an amazing feeling to hear him belt it out. He sounds the same. He sounds just as strong as 35 years ago.
And he had an amazing music career. He wrote the song "Bad Girls" with Donna Summer. I mean, he has an extensive 40-year career. He had no idea that song, what it meant to so many people. I mean, listen, I went to the gym and played it, but he had no idea. And, that song was supposed to be in the movie Rocky III.
That's right.
And Stallone chose Eye of the Tiger, and John Avildsen was smart, and he got You're the Best Around. And it's the underdog song. When the movie came out, they were really pushing Cruel Summer. But that song, Here We Are, was just on the Super Bowl. And, so that's
exactly. Yeah.
And so while I asked Joe, and he says, I had no idea, the question is for you, and I already know the answer, but could you have had any idea when you were there that 35 years later, this movie would be massive and that you're part of history?
Well, it's hard to accept, because the answer is no. I never would have thought. And, for, like I said, 25 years, it didn't feel like much, because it was mostly anonymity. People, I wouldn't have to tell people that it was me, or maybe a karate student will Google it and see that. But after the 30-year reunion and talk of Cobra Kai, and then Cobra Kai came out, and then really a resurgence of people seeing it. It's to me, it's almost like a mini Star Wars universe, or Marvel universe, but it really has its own universe of fans. And no, I never would have thought it. But I'll tell you a couple of things. First, when I was watching the filming of the movie, I definitely wouldn't have thought so, because the fighting, when you're watching it being filmed, besides my scenes, I mean, not to be a braggart about the whole thing, but I'm watching the non-karate people do karate, and it's not very convincing up close. But once they cut it and edit it, it's amazing.
Mhm.
Especially for the untrained eye, it's perfect. And then, but here's the thing: is the question you just asked me? I asked John Alvinson that question, and his answer was not in a million years.
Wow.
So there you go.
Yeah. How amazing, and it's a shame that he's not here to see,
Yes,
just how crazy the franchise is.
it really is.
The producers of Cobra Kai figured out how to do it right. They figured out how to get a new audience, but to please fans. The show's a little ridiculous. At some point, when's somebody going to call the cops? How are these kids killing each other every week? But you know what? We're invested. And
Right.
so the question to you, and I know you can't answer it, but I'm going to have to ask it, is so when do we see you on Cobra Kai?
Yeah, obviously I can't say anything, but they know how to get a hold of me because they've used footage in season 1, episode 1. They have a flashback of me fighting Johnny. And then in season 2, I mentioned, and same with season 3, they talked about me. So,
Well, they gave you a backstory now. We now know that you were the defending champion.
That's right. I didn't find that out until somebody screenshotted the article, and then I saw it for the first time. I said, "Hey, look, me and Johnny are 1-1."
Yeah, all your accomplishments in life. You're a 10th degree black belt in Chinese Kempo, but
Right.
you're also now a winner. You didn't even know it, of the All Valley tournament under 18.
Not only that, there was another detail I never thought of until one fan brought it up to me. But since I lost to Johnny, I would have fought Ron or Bobby Brown for 3rd and 4th place, right, in a normal elimination. And then Johnny fights Ralph. Well, Ron got disqualified, so I would have taken 3rd place.
Right.
So where's my trophy?
That's a good point. And we should point out that Ron Thomas was also one of the only martial artists.
Yes.
On the
Also,
set. He kept it quiet.
A black belt in jiu-jitsu, yes. Absolutely. Yeah. We knew, once we got together, we knew what was going on, but he didn't talk about it. He was instructed not to talk about it.
Right, yeah. And they were looking for actors, and I think he wanted to, play that up. But so I think, look, I think we got to see you on Cobra Kai at some point. It's the perfect idea to have you there in some part. I think the producers know that, and so.
Yeah, they know. I mean, there's so much that people talk about it. I mean, like I said, I'm amazed that people know who Vidal is. And one of my martial arts students even brought up the point. He says, "There's not very many people who are themselves in a fictional movie, but I am one of those people. It's like meet John Malkovich. He's in a movie called Meet John Malkovich."
And for the last 30 years or so, you can tell me better, but obviously you've been teaching Chinese Kempo at the Parks and Rec.
That's right.
In
Murrieta.
And what's so amazing is, though, how many of your students come in and go, wait a second, my sensei is the guy from the Karate Kid.
Well, it's funny that you do say that. First of all, I came. My instructor, where I grew up in Chino, was a Parks and Rec program. So when I came to Murrieta 30 years ago, my wife and I wanted to. She teaches dance, and so we started our programs here in Murrieta 31 years ago, actually. And I started teaching karate, and she started teaching dance. And I never really talked about the Karate Kid, so sometimes people would tell each other, or I think it's the most fun when someone knows me for years and then they're watching TV and they say, "There's that guy, I know him." Now it's a little bit different. Now people know about it a lot more.
I would have signed up just for that. In fact, I was ready to come out to Murrieta, but then I see these videos you knocking people out, and I'm scared. So I'm gonna. I don't think my crane technique is good enough.
I only do that to black belts.
Yes, well, it's people who want to think that getting a black belt is just, we pay your dues. Your dues. It's not the case. You really have to earn it.
Yeah, in some systems you do. You definitely gotta put up a fight.
Yeah, and so it's great that the martial arts has been such a part of your life, and that you're able to share that with so many people. And so Tell me a little bit about, I know people want to hear about movies and things, but tell me a little bit about your background and what got you into Kenpo and the difference, because that's not your only style, and the different styles of martial arts that you practice.
So growing up, like you, I was a Bruce Lee fan. So, anybody who studies Bruce Lee knows that he incorporated many things. So I started with Kenpo. And as a brown belt, I started to branch out a little bit more. I wrestled in high school. I joined a boxing club for 3 years. I boxed because those were kind of the pieces that Bruce Lee brought together. Then I found a person who did Wing Chun, so I started training with that person for a while. So now I'm bringing together all those pieces. So by the time I got my black belt when I was 18, I had delved into wrestling, boxing, Wing Chun, which obviously is the predecessor of Jeet Kune Do. Now, preceding all of that, from my own family's background, I was exposed to Filipino stick fighting, or eskrima, as it's commonly known. And so that was actually one of the first things that I picked up, but I didn't really expand on it until much later, where I met more people and started training with them on a regular basis. But in terms of the Filipino stick fighting, I always did it kind of at lunch with this guy and with these guys on these days, and it was never structured. So I don't hold a ranking in anyone's system, but I've been doing it for 40 years. I've developed my own system here in Murrieta, so I have a Filipino stick fighting club here in Murrieta where I teach that too.
Yeah, and I think in some ways the true martial artist is the person who, especially if you follow the Bruce Lee methods, is that you take a little bit of everything and you put it together. Obviously Dan Inosanto, co-star of Game of Death with Bruce and Bruce's student, he's been teaching Kali Eskrima, forever. I think turning a lot of new people onto that as well.
Yes. And I only take the mixing to a certain limit, because unless you're going to start your own JKD or whatever else, MMA, for instance, when I teach Chinese Kenpo, I've pretty much held true to the system that I learned from my instructor, who's still around. And there's modifications. I've added sets, I've added this and that, but it's still a complete curriculum that reflects the whole curriculum of my instructor, Joe Rosas. And then as I teach the Filipino arts, I stick to what I've been taught and the drills I was taught, and then put things together. But I haven't made up this and made up that. I really have stuck with the things that were the most fundamental of the different people that I trained with.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to get into some movies in a second, and then and that'll give us a chance to talk more about different martial arts styles, because all of your choices have a different style for the most part. But I want to let people know where they can get some merch and souvenirs and things. I know people love collecting Karate Kid. I was so excited that you were doing these appearances, and so you have all these great photos. As a collector of memorabilia myself, I thought, I want to have a photo of Darryl dressed as Miyagi signed. And so people can get that from you by going to your Facebook. Tell us what your Facebook is.
Okay, so my Facebook is Vidal Kenpo. It's my last name and Kenpo at the end. And I have, if you go to my marketplace, you'll see all my merchandise, which is autographed photos, shirts with my school logo, Vidal Kenpo Karate logo, and stuff like that.
Yeah, so he's got some really cool stuff. He's being modest. He's not putting on the hard sales pitch, but he's got some really cool photos from the movie and of himself. And what a great time to get these things. I know people miss being able to go to these conventions. And so for now, you can go onto Facebook, go to his marketplace, and you can get different scenes in the movie signed.
Or just, message me on any of the platforms, Vidal Kenpo. On Instagram, I'm Rockbreaker Boy, at Rockbreaker Boy, and then on Twitter, I'm at Vidal Kenpo. Or actually, it's turned around, at Kenpo Vidal.
Yeah, which is great. So I want to recommend that. I'm going to show a couple more cool Karate Kid of my merchandise real quick, that I've collected, and then we're going to get into the movie. So when I was in New York, Pat Morita was he was at a Benihana restaurant. And
You're kidding.
As you know, he likes to drink, and he was a little intoxicated. But I was fortunate enough.
Oh, wow.
Look at that. Yeah.
Yes.
And Ralph signed these.
That is awesome. Yeah.
That's one. And then there's another one. And he wrote different things. This one he wrote arigato. And this one he wrote stay happy. You know, back then people weren't even thinking so much that this was going to become, you know, priceless memorabilia.
Oh, wow. You've got a ton of stuff.
Yeah, I was really fortunate. What's funny is this one. When Ralph signed it, he said, "This is another one of these ridiculous photos with grown men looking into each other's eyes." You know? And then we should mention, you know, Rob Garrison.
Of course, Rob. He was at that show that we were all at.
Yeah, which was his final appearance.
Yes.
And he was and he was sick and passed away. And at least he got to be in that Cobra Kai episode.
Right.
Where crazy enough they got him a body bag. It was
I don't want to know if you want to call it a coincidence or the foreshadowing or whatever, but it's
I think they must have known he was sick.
Well, yeah, you know, I've heard conflicting stories. I've heard from the people that were there. I've heard that they didn't know, and I've heard that they did know. So it's like I'm not sure what it was.
When he did that appearance that we had together, I think they knew, because they were sort of hyping it as one of his last appearances, and he was signing a lot of things, and I got the feeling that maybe they knew. So
yeah, I got that feeling too.
Yeah.
You want to see something that I have?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I think people like to see this, you know.
Yeah, well, I have it up on my wall, so I have to get up and grab it off the wall here. But this is a picture that I have from Pat, and I don't know if you see it there.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's signed to me. You can't barely read it, but it says, "To Darryl, good things from a friend always, Pat Morita, Mr. Miyagi." And then below here, I have a picture of me and Ralph that was taken on New Year's Eve, 1983, which was the end of filming of the Karate Kid. It was the last day. It was on New Year's Eve, and I brought a camera. You know, nobody had cameras around back then.
No. Yeah.
And then so I brought a camera. I said, "I'm taking pictures of people," and that was a picture I took with me and Ralph. And I guess I should have him try to sign it next time I see him.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's the thing, Darryl. You know, when and that's an amazing memory to have. But when the country opens again, conventions are going to be big. People are going to want to meet everyone they possibly can, and it'll be fun to do those things again.
Yep.
But so let's talk a little bit about movies. I asked you to pick top 5 martial arts movies to recommend. You know, for people sitting at home, there are too many choices, and some movies are better than others.
I even have to admit that I don't even watch a lot of them anymore because there's so many, and you know, I don't know that they're getting any better.
Yes, what I like about your choices are, I believe that these are movies that you can recommend to a casual fan. You don't have to be a hardcore martial artist. You know, when I was dating back in the day and into martial arts, it was very difficult to take your date to I certainly couldn't take someone to see Once Upon a Time in China with subtitles. You know?
Right.
So I'd sit there by myself. But I might be able to trick them into Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Steven Seagal. And so anyway, but we're going to get into it. But I want to just give you your first one, if you don't mind, because you picked 5. But I think there's one, and this one seems to be on everybody's list. Yeah, and it should be. And so let's just start with, let's see what it is here. Let's start with this one. Oh, that's not it. Hold on. Pretend you didn't see that.
Okay.
That's a later one. This is the magic of live. The magic of live interviews. Editing would be too. Let's see if it's this one. Well, I don't want to ruin it now. Hold on. I think it's this one. There it is. All right.
That's it.
So
the classic.
You tell me what Enter the Dragon meant to you.
This was it. You know, there were many kung fu movies that came out before. Five Fingers of Death. You know, the Shaolin monks or whatever, the guys that puff up. But when this hit the big, well, first of all, let's back up a little bit. The first one that I had seen was the Chinese Connection, which is also was called the Fist of Fury. So depending on which version you saw, I saw it was Chinese Connection. So it was like, oh, look at this. Bruce Lee is not fighting the same way. It's not this, right? It was wild and crazy and not pure systematic. And then, so I knew known about him. And then I didn't get to see, Return of the Dragon, which actually was completed before Enter the Dragon. But then when Enter the Dragon hit the screens, we went and saw it, and I was completely blown away. Fans of Bruce Lee and Kato and all that stuff. So I still think that this is the milestone martial arts movie, even though the martial arts isn't pure to or true to any specific martial art. It's kung fu-ish, but he uses his combination of everything from JKD and boxing, Chinese boxing.
And so one of the interesting, there is a 6 degrees of separation to the Karate Kid. We should point out that Pat Johnson, who signed your shirt and was the referee, is actually in the movie Enter the Dragon as well.
That's right. You got the dough roper?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I was trying to remember the actual line. Yeah. It's kind of like
it's the dough roper, or we got to break something. That's what the line is.
Yeah, and he's trying to collect from John Saxon earlier in the movie. And so that's one comparison with Karate Kid, obviously. I feel that Enter the Dragon is that it would be the Marvel Universe cinematic. It's the first blockbuster American martial arts movie.
Before Jackie Chan or like you say Seagal, whoever you want to name, Bruce Lee changed the martial arts world. So and
people who watch that movie, if you haven't seen it, it still wins people over. Some things are a little silly at times, but it still works. Yeah, I know people who discover it all the time, and it turns them on to Bruce Lee. My first Bruce Lee movie was Game of Death, just because of my age, and it was on TV, and so I had to learn that 80% of the movie is stand-ins. But I knew that like some of the moves, like Bruce wouldn't do that, and he wouldn't do this, and then find the end of the movie is him.
But the way that Bruce Lee moved is completely different from anything before it. And I would tell you that as a kicker, I did a lot of kicking in the Karate Kid. A lot of my kicking was fashioned after Bruce Lee, just by watching, frame by frame how he gets from this position into this position, and what position his leg is in when he's fully extended, and all that kind of stuff. So they're all the fighting you ever see me doing in the Karate Kid is mimicked after watching Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I heard you say that, and when you watch back, you can notice that you put some of Bruce's a style into that, which is really great. Yeah.
No, I don't know where you heard that. I only said that in one interview ever.
I saw that one then.
Yeah, that somebody mentioned.
I can see it even in that still frame that we showed. You can see your guard and the head movement is Bruce, inspired, which is great. Bruce Lee will live on forever, and the reason that I started with that one is because I feel like none of these other movies would have existed without
exactly.
Without
a lot of people would ask me, could you take Bruce Lee? And I say, obviously the first answer is, well, of course he's dead. But then my second answer is, I would say that I probably could, because I'm taller than him and I'm heavier than him by about 25 pounds.
Yeah.
It's still
that was always the debate. And then you also had people who really only considered Bruce Lee an actor, even though obviously he was a martial artist first.
Right.
And you have these debates, and you have these guys like Chuck Norris, and they all have different versions and stories. And
I mean, you would say the same for me. In fact, I'm a martial artist. I'm a 10th degree black belt, but I've never been in an MMA ring. I have fought and boxed, So I know how to knock somebody out, and I've knocked people out, and I've been knocked out. But you know, I couldn't get in a ring with any of these UFC guys right now. That would be, you know, that would be
Yeah.
suicide.
Yeah. So, okay. Now, Darryl, you tell me the next one you want to talk about.
Um, you know, I don't recall the list off the top of my head. What
I
did
have.
what's that?
You want me to read them off?
Well, yeah. What's number two? I'll tell you
Okay.
what's
Hold
number
on.
two
Let
and
me.
one.
There's only one of these that I don't know. So let's go to that one. Hold on. And this one is, you talk about it a little bit while I warm up, but this one is Ongbak, the Thai
Okay,
warrior.
you haven't seen this. Okay,
No,
this
I'm not
is
behind.
Tony Jaa. He came out in probably early mid 2000s, late 2000s, but it was just kind of the first viable Muay Thai on film. Okay, because if you watch the martial arts evolve, you know, in the early '90s, you saw UFC come around, and when UFC came around, you started to see all the things that were being used in MMA, and one of them was Thai boxing. You know, so there was a whole branch of interest that went into Thai boxing and Muay Thai. That's where you see, you know, the knees, a certain kind of kicking, you know, these little spliney guys, you know, they're fighting at 110 and 115, but yet they look like they chop your legs off, you know.
Mhm.
So Tony Jaa took that Muay Thai and made it work for movies. It's the same sort of thing as Bruce Lee, you know, terrible acting, corny stories, uh, you know, because why are you going to be fighting unless you're fighting for a tournament? Why are there no guns and all those normal type of things that you run into with hokey martial arts movies? But if you watch his Muay Thai and the acrobatics that he does with the Muay Thai, he's a great athlete, and it would be very effective. A lot of good stunt work. You know, it's funny because you don't see on my list anything by Jackie Chan, and even though I'm a big fan, I never liked his stuff because it always seemed like a little slapstick.
Mhm.
You know, he was a little comical. He would get hurt, you know, walk around like this. I never liked that part of his style. Although his stunt work is amazing, and his you know his athleticism is amazing. So that's why Unbach. Yeah, you should watch it. There's like three of them actually, and there's a lot of good martial arts.
Yeah, and you make a very good point. The Muay Thai style became very popular, as did UFC, and there's a lot of people watching it, and it is a different style. And so this is an interesting angle to see it in an action movie.
Yes, yes.
So okay, so
It's the best action movie that highlights Thai boxing.
okay, so let's go to one, and I'm going to tell you this. I'm shocked to admit this. I am late to the party. Oh, hold on, I don't even have it ready. Well, we'll go back to an earlier one. Let's go to this one I've seen, and this is Steven Seagal,
Yep. His
Above
first
the Law.
movie.
This is the beginning of Seagal. So tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, this was his first movie, and it was the first again another style being brought to the masses for the first time in the most viable fashion. So Steven Seagal plays a cop, it's New York, Chicago, dealing with gangsters, and he deals with the whole gun thing because he gets drawn on, and he shows his mastery with weaponry. So instead of avoiding it by some weirdness, he deals with it, and the storyline is, I mean, it's still the same thing, you know, bad acting and
Yeah.
storyline, but the action is good, and like I said, it's the first introduction of Aikido, and a very violent application of Aikido into the movies, and so it even goes back and talks about his early life. I don't know how much of it is true, you know, the CIA, but he did study in Japan, and he did, you know, do the mastery of Aikido, and he does know Aikido. You know, the other stuff about Steven Seagal that, you know, since then I don't know,
Sure.
you know, sheriff and, you know, all these other things that he does, but this movie blaze a trail for, you know, the introduction of this type of a tall white martial artist, very good because of his, Eastern training, true Eastern training, looked legitimate. The violence looks legitimate. These guys are going through, windows and smashing tables, like it would happen in a bar fight. And like I said, he deals with, being shot at and shooting back, which, requires, mastery of weapons. That looks good when someone knows, and looks terrible when somebody doesn't know how to handle it. You always see these guys that are holding a gun and they don't know what they're doing. So Above the Law was the first movie that brings all those pieces together, and it still holds up. I still like watching it.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point. This is a movie that begun the second wave of martial arts movies. Jean-Claude Van Damme and all these white martial artists. All of a sudden you have Jeff Speakman and Don the Dragon Wilson, and it becomes this whole that really. But it started with Above the Law, I think.
Well, yeah, and like I said, it was the introduction of Aikido, because Aikido is very, it's fluid, and it's using their momentum, and there's not necessarily it's not straight punching and kicking.
Yes.
And so when you watch that, it's like, whoa, he just threw him through the window, and wow, how did he do that? And so, I had taken Aikido, so I'm watching it, and I was like, yeah, it's the first time you really see it. And then he came out with a couple more that were starting to get worse, and then by the time, he's into his, 9th or 10th movie, it's like, I don't even see them anymore.
Yeah, I think people were a little surprised to see it. There was a lot of hand grabs and technique, and a lot of, like you said, using people's momentum and throws. And so I think it was kind of exciting to me. It almost moved too fast.
Yeah, go back and watch it. Go back and watch it. You'll see some really fundamental Aikido moves that are used all over the place. Mm-hmm. But the level of violence is as good as any other martial arts movie that you might be watching.
Okay, now let's go. Now I got it queued up here. We're gonna go to this movie. Everyone recommended it. There's 4 of them. Somehow I didn't see these movies. I just felt
really?
like, yeah, I went through a phase with martial arts movies where I thought, oh, they're all just overdone and nothing's gonna be as good.
I know what you're talking about, definitely.
Yeah, and because also they all started coming out again, and I said to myself, these can't be that good, because I remember when I was living in New York City, I would go and see, the Chinese import movies with subtitles, and I was blown away by martial arts. And when they would come to America, Jackie Chan, as you were saying, his American movies will never be as good as the Chinese movies. He couldn't do the things here that he did there.
They wouldn't let him do. Yeah, they wouldn't let him do.
And so I kind of just was retired from martial art movies. I would just go back and watch the old ones, but everybody says you have to see this series, Yip Man. And hold on, there's Steven Seagal. We don't need him. Hold on.
Well, you know the backstory of Ip Man, right?
Yeah, but you should tell it for the people who might not know.
Okay, so Ip Man was the teacher of Bruce Lee. And Wing Chun was a system that was created by a woman, historically. And so it's a very unique kung fu style, and so it was also the fundamental style of Bruce Lee, and so anybody who pursues martial arts from a Bruce Lee perspective, after you take karate, is you have to take some Wing Chun, which I did, and still like to do the training. I have a Wing Chun dummy. I like to train with it. I'd like to meet up with my Wing Chun friends, and so Donnie Yen is a great Wing Chun practitioner. It's the same thing that we all talked about: dumb storylines, bad acting. But his Wing Chun is impeccable, and so they've done what Bruce Lee did to a point of using kind of, I wouldn't say pure or true Wing Chun, but keeping true to Wing Chun, in terms of what Donnie Yen does as Ip Man, and then even showing him in the different movies fighting other styles of Chinese kung fu, fighting Western boxing, fighting Japanese. That's what the different movies are about. Even fighting Mike Tyson, and so the application of Wing Chun, his application, and the way they film it is done well. There is some flying through the air and super things that a little bit out of whack. But other than that, if you like Wing Chun, you should like Ip Man, and there is even a good storyline with the wife and all that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, I find that the visuals, the cinematography on these movies is amazing.
It is. That is
score,
true.
the score is powerful, and I feel like if you're not a martial artist, you will still enjoy this movie. You don't have to be a martial artist. And Darryl, I got to ask you, you must be amazed to see Wing Chun become so popular, because in a lot of ways, there was a time when Bruce Lee thought he had to advance from Wing Chun because he felt that he was too slow just with that one style. And so it's sort of funny that, and as a kid, you would see the pictures of Ip Man, and he was an older man. And so you never thought that this person would become this movie action star.
Well, and not only that, the whole method of Wing Chun, which is, it's all right here, and here it doesn't look flashy, not jumping in the air, not kicking and spinning around, but it's so efficient, right? If I'm gonna be here, like from Enter the Dragon, right? This is Bruce Lee's tournament scene where they put their wrists up against each other, and then he does the back fist. That's called a power hand draw, where he actually drops pressure here and hits him with the back knuckle. That's a Wing Chun technique. But when you see it done in Ip Man, they'll be in the formal cross guards, and you'll still see the same move, but it's more centered. It's more like the Wing Chun would be executed.
Yeah, and these movies aren't boring. They're not as corny as a lot of martial arts movies can be. I mean, they're silly, obviously, here and there. But and like you said, there's not so much flying through the air. Some people might not be able to handle, Shaw Brothers type stuff. These, and you get to see him fight Mike Tyson and these type of things. And
for instance, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I've never seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, just because the trailer's showing him flying through the air, and I said, I can't do it.
It's so funny you say that, Darryl. So I went to see it in New York in a big theater, and it was every show was sold out. And at the end of the movie, I said, I've already seen this.
20 years ago.
Million times. I used to go and buy bootleg VHS tapes of this similar movie. That style wasn't new to me. And that's what my fear was with these movies. Is this just going to be stuff I've seen before? But with these Ip Man movies, it's not the case. They're using good technology, good lighting, good locations, and Donnie Yen is the modern. Got to give the guy credit. He's the modern martial arts hero.
And like you said, I don't have the photographer or cinematographer's eye, but what you say about the way it's filmed and all of the music and all that stuff is done very well. And it's set in World War II, pre-World War II era, so there's good reasoning for the situations that they find themselves.
Yes, old Chinese martial arts movies always have some politics and some serious themes. If you watch these movies, you learn the Japanese and the English are are very bad.
Exactly.
Every time you watch it, when you see somebody come in who's Japanese, you go, bad news, or like the English or any Western boxer. These people are oppressing the Chinese. Now this is we're talking about the 1930s, 1940s. Yeah. So for anyone,
it was like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't want to get our culture canceled or. But okay, and so the final one you picked, and this was an interesting choice too, and it shows diversity. But this is a Hollywood movie. Is the Kill Bill series?
Yes.
Now, tell me what these movies meant to you.
Well, first of all, I'm a huge Quentin Tarantino fan. I mean, probably if I was to list my all-time favorite movies that aren't martial arts movies, it would be, Goodfellas, Tombstone, and Pulp Fiction. So the whole Quentin Tarantino thing, Reservoir Dogs, is thematic with Kill Bill. Uma Thurman I think she, I mean, I think she does the character well. Uh, her athleticism holds up, although I can immediately see when they get the stunt doubles in.
Right.
But the martial arts is over the top in a great way. Gratuitous violence and bleeding and chopping people's limbs off and all that kind of stuff. But it's done in almost a black comedy slapstick, mix of only Quentin Tarantino could get away with. So we'll definitely like the first one a lot, and Uma Thurman in the black and yellow tracksuit, and then the great scenes in the restaurant with the sword. I'm not into big fight scenes. I usually think they're overdone and overproduced, but that scene in the restaurant with Kill Bill and the girl, I can't remember her name, is classic, and the martial arts holds up. The sword play is good. You actually don't see a lot of good sword play.
Absolutely, mine to this point.
Yeah, I'm not a swords expert. I mean, I can handle one, and I have several, but I'm not a purist by any form. But I know what I'm looking at. So, yeah, that's why this is and this is one that you can watch over and over.
Yeah, again, this is something that if you want to, you want to trick your girlfriend or wife into watching some martial arts, you got a Tarantino movie, and that you'll be all right. And this, like you said, Tarantino was always a fan. He was watching all these old movies that we spoke about, and so he's always wanted to bring these movies into the into the mainstream, and here is a great example of that.
Yep.
And I think there's like each one of the movies that you've recommended, there is something for everybody. There's different things, and so you can go on Netflix and find a lot of these movies. I know the Ip Man movies, the whole series is there, so you can watch these, for free. And then you, of course, you can't turn your TV on without seeing The Karate Kid. Darryl, you're on TV.
You notice I didn't put that on the list.
Yeah, well, honorable mention. I think you don't want to put yourself on there, but for a different reason. When Karate Kid came out, I think some martial artists might have said, this wax on, wax off is ridiculous, But looking back, you start to say, okay, and whatever brings ideas of, listen, it brought martial arts to the forefront again.
It did. Just to comment on it, the whole premise of someone training in a limited fashion, only on defensive moves for 2 months, and then beating black belts in a tournament is totally far-fetched. Because as a black belt tournament competitor, I would tell you that guy has no chance. And, at the black belt tournament, even though it's only point system, these guys are moving so fast and they're so know how to work the ring that someone's not going to come in with a summer of training without live sparring and win a tournament like that. But still it's that's the premise of the movie. And my role was to hold up the fact that this is a real karate tournament. There's guys that can do a lot of karate, in the tournament who are in it and getting beat Stunt Johnny and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think, and just to go along with what you were talking about, I'm always astonished when people that I've known or people that I know are lifetime martial artists tell me that it was because of the Karate Kid or even because of me, which has happened as well, that they started martial arts and it changed their life and all those kind of stories. I still can't fathom it, that I was part of that.
Yeah, and I think also because you were involved with martial arts before, this was already your lifestyle. So,
that's good point.
Yeah, it was to you. You already had it, but martial arts is a way of life, and for people who are watching who are martial artists, they understand that it becomes this is how you live. It's not it's not just this. Oh, I saw a movie and now I'm going to learn.
Yeah. It's like, for instance, I have to teach class tomorrow night at 6:00. So
yeah, and so
pandemic.
Yeah, yeah. And you have been teaching through. Were you doing online for a while?
I probably stopped for 4 weeks. Immediately started out doing online, and have been doing online. And I think we're coming back next month or this month. Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, you got to be in. You can teach a lot of concepts and things, but it really helps, like you were saying, to spar.
Yeah, you got to have hands on. In fact, I can't do little kids because Zoom does not work, and I can't do stick fighting because everything in stick fighting is contact and reaction, and reverberation, so it's like it doesn't work.
Yeah, and absolutely. So hopefully very soon, and you should start doing. You should be doing seminars. Have you thought about traveling?
Yeah, I will. I have been asked. I'm starting to do that a little bit now. So yeah, and then you do those type of things. So
Yeah, I think people would really like to be able to train with you, and I think people enjoy hearing your life stories as well. We've only scratched the surface, but I'm really glad that you were able to do this today. And Darryl, like I was saying to you before, when the world opens again, I'm going to come visit you.
Okay.
And we're going to go to the university where the tournament scene was filmed.
And it's like 100 miles from my house, but we can do it. It can be arranged.
and we are gonna we're gonna see what it looks like now, because I know people love these locations. People want to see these locations, and so you're the expert, because I tell you, a lot of people say the wrong places.
Okay, well, I know some. You said the golf and stuff is closed. But I mean, like Miyagi's house, it doesn't exist anywhere. Golf and stuff is gone. But Leo Carrillo State Beach, Cal State Northridge for the tournament, the Seven Seas is still there, and I think you can still find Allie Mills's house. But
yes, Allie Mills's house, and like you said, and golf and stuff looks like they haven't cleaned since 1984. I mean, it looks literally, which is good. The water slide is gone. So you don't have to bring your bathing suit anymore. But otherwise, it looks exactly like it looked in the movie.
Yeah, I haven't been back there, so I wouldn't know.
Well, we might have to do that too. We might have to do a Karate Kid day.
Right. Put it together.
Yeah, I'm going to work on it. Darryl, thank you for the recommendations. Thank you for talking about Karate Kid with people who I'm sure would enjoy hearing these stories. And normally these are interviews, but I love talking about martial arts, and I love talking about movies, and you're such a great guy to talk about it with. So
thanks a lot, Jason.
Yeah. So we'll do. We're going to do it again.
Okay.
We're gonna follow up, and make sure you visit Darryl's Facebook, pick up some cool stuff, and we'll see you next time.